Did you know there are 1.4 billion Indian citizens? 1.4 billion Chinese citizens, almost 3 billion combined people in those two countries. The United States population, 330 million. That means there are 9 times more Chinese and Indians in the world. And when you consider culturally, economically, how tied they are to precious metals, it becomes rather encouraging. But let's cover some other super interesting facts about both the countries, and then we'll do a deep dive into what's going on statistically with gold and silver in India and China. China has 102 cities with over 1 million population. Their army has over 2 million troops. It's the world's largest. India, their army, 1.4 million troops. To put that into perspective, United States, 1.4 million troops. So India has the same number of troops. China has an even bigger army than the United States of America. In China, very interesting. Did you know it's illegal not to visit your parents on a regular basis if they are over the age of 60? And we know how China feels about silver. They've been making all kinds of noise lately about the fact that they need more silver. The smelters, the refiners, their industry is saying we need silver to provide the products that society needs to move forward. India's 1.4 billion people include the third highest number of billionaires in the entire world. These are intelligent people. Did you know the game of chess was invented in India? And like we discussed, they have a military which rivals in size that of the United States of America. But what about silver? Do Indians like silver? Well, 2022 saw record imports of silver into India. Yes, that's right. Almost 300 million ounces of silver purchased by Indians. That was a record. That was almost 35% of the world's entire mine output for the world. Indians love gold. They actually have over 25,000 metric tons of gold held in Indian households. So if you know some Indian people, you might want to be nice to them. Maybe they'll give you a little gold sometime. To put that into perspective, Indian households have 3 times the amount of gold that's supposedly held in Fort Knox. India and China are sucking up all the gold and silver. Much of it is moving from the West, from the COMEX and the LBMA, from their vaults, which are now at almost record low inventory levels, and moving to the East. We have to recognize that. These countries on a cultural level and an economic monetary system level view gold and silver much, much differently than we do in the West. Many Indian and Chinese citizens view gold in particular as a savings mechanism, a way to store wealth, a way to store value. While we are only maybe 1 in 100 people, us in the West, in the United States or England or Australia, wherever you're watching this from. By the way, thanks for doing that. You're always welcome here in the basement. Please give this a thumbs up. Please come back, and you can subscribe. That's free. Nonetheless, we're 1 in 100, right? We are an elite group here in the West. In China and India, it's more prevalent. It's common that people view silver and gold much, much differently. Now, the final argument people will put out is, yeah, but China and India, those are poor countries. Well, China now has the second largest economy in the world, and we know that the economies in China and India are growing much, much faster than the major Western developed economies. And on top of that, their middle class, think about this. In China and India, their middle class, they are rapidly expanding compared to the United States. If you tried to live as a middle class person in the United States lately, I have. It's becoming increasingly difficult. We have a middle class that is shrinking, being squeezed, abused in many ways, whereas China and India, their middle classes are expanding. People are finding themselves with more disposable income, and more of that will find its way into the silver and gold market. We also need to consider this military component because many people, as we know, will claim that while the U.S. dollar isn't backed by anything anymore, the full faith and confidence, whatever that is, a lot of people will say that it's backed by the U.S. military. But doesn't it seem interesting when we consider that the Chinese military is now bigger when based on a manpower measurement, and India has a military that's almost the same size as the United States? It's going to be interesting. It's been a rough ride lately for silver and gold investors, but we got to keep the big picture, the big scenario in mind. We'll do that because we're smart. I'll see you next time here in the basement. Go watch a live stream.